Hey guys, it's History Behind the Warrior, and welcome to another God of War video. In today's topic and discussion, with us having talked a fair bit about the gods, and who we may see, today I wanted to turn our sights back to the centerpiece of the Nordic series, Atreus, or how he is known by his Jotun heritage, Loki. The Trickster is an infamous figure in the Norse pantheon, and now more than ever, he's more popular than he ever has been, probably courtesy of his Marvel counterpart. But with that being said, today we will be talking about his God of War interpretation, and if this iteration of the character is as innocent as he seems to be. As whilst Atreus' heart may be in the right place, it cannot be denied that the child has most certainly shown a bit of a mean streak. And with the god that he's based on, will we see a more villainous side to him? So, today, we will be focusing heavily on Atreus, his foundation as a character, and how does he stack up to his Nordic mythological counterpart, as he has grown up quite a bit since the last game. But before we do begin, as always guys, I would super appreciate it if we could get this video to about 500 likes. It's a fantastic way of supporting this channel, and it also helps give this video that extra kick right out the gate. Plus, if you like what we do here and wish to see more, please don't forget to subscribe and tick that bell, as it will keep you up to date with all of the content we do have here. Now here is a very quick message from today's sponsor. Tired of waiting for the next state of play? Well, wait no longer, as you know who it is, I know who it is, Raid Shadow Legends, the mobile game that has taken the world by storm. With over 600 champions and multiple unique factions, the world of Teleria has never felt more alive. Which brings us to today's interesting faction, the Orcs. Now whilst Orcs are typically portrayed as villainous, here they are very different, serving their own desires and ambitions. Created by the hands of a Dark Lord, their world would be torn apart, being used as pawns to fight the likes of the Bannerlords, High Elves, and the Sacred Order. In time, their land would be left to ruin, and thus the Orcs would be left with no home, no purpose. But recently, there has been a change in the tide, with the Elven Queen Ava having opened her gates to the Orcs. But the real question here is, to what possible and sinister end? Well, play the campaign in order to find out. As someone who's super big on medieval designs, I am a huge fan of the orc designs in Raid. Gorhak the Bloodthirsty and Val the Destroyer, straight up, look like enemies you can go up against in Middle Earth. It captures their feral nature, and the personality shines through their armor. Now, my personal favorite aspect about Raid is really its availability. Being accessible on desktop, iOS and Android, you can pick up, play and go anytime, anywhere. Which is super damn helpful for me, as I do travel around a lot. So, if you're interested, please scan my QR code or click on the link in the description below. By doing so, you'll get your hands on an epic champion, Vergis, 200k silver, 1 energy refill, 1 XP boost, and 1 ancient shard. So, the second you step in game, you can summon an additional champion. And this stuff all comes out to about $30, and all of your rewards will be waiting for you here once you do so. But without any further ado, let's get back to the video, shall we? Now, Atreus is a very young, timid boy, being born part giant, part god. He is far different from your average child. But this wasn't exactly something the young Atreus ever knew, sheltered from childbirth of his heritage. Atreus was born with no knowledge of his true capabilities, as well as his destiny as a child of fate. Thus, he was brought up with the kind heart of his mother and the harsh teachings of his father. Whilst it didn't craft him into the ultimate warrior, these were all stepping stones that would be instrumental in his journey to begin Ragnarok. The events that transpire is what truly shapes Atreus into becoming the demigod needed to take down the gods. As the game world unfolds, it begins to test his knowledge of the world and the tales his mother had told him. It allows Atreus to experience the real world for the very first time, and unfortunately, the true nature and heart of combat. How to hone one's own convictions wounds and hold a very heavy heart, something he can only learn through experience. But that is something the Spartan can guide him through. Whilst callous, Kratos does deeply care for his son. Although disconnected at the start of their journey, after quest, we begin to see the pair become a formidable unit, defeating the likes of Valkyries, gods, and even dragons. But that's not to say it was all smooth sails. A major key point in the middle of the story is Atreus' change of heart. Upon learning of his father's heritage, and how he himself was a god, at first, this seems like something quite innocent that Atreus does embrace, as understandably it's something quite exciting for him, and possibly a way for him to connect with his father. But this quickly turns very ugly for the young man. Upon embracing his divinity, the young Atreus develops what could only be described as a bit of an ego, making backhanded remarks about his dead mother, belittling and snapping at Sindri, and even killing Modi. The young Atreus that we saw at the start of the game is overshadowed by this menacing and callous young man. They are almost two different characters in that sense, and I believe this is the somewhat stereotypical Loki coming to the surface. But eventually, this version of Atreus comes to blows with both Kratos and Balder, where out of frustration, Atreus actually shoots an arrow at Kratos, subduing his own father. But once he turns his sights towards Balder, his ego is very quickly squashed, being swiftly knocked out by the Aesir Child of Light. As Balder looks to take him to Asgard, Kratos is able to interfere, dragging them to Helheim, where Atreus is scolded for his defiant actions. As we begin to explore the realm of Helheim, we see that even Atreus is stunned by his own actions, having no recollection of the events that unfolded. But how is this so? Well, we will touch on that a little bit later when we get around to comparing the two. Now, it's at this point here where the mean streak of Atreus is halted, and he somewhat comes to terms with the harsh reality of having godhood. It is a title and mantle that is built on death, patricide, and vengeance. Whilst Kratos assures him that together they can be better, the future is still left unwritten, and with a Jotunheim mural depicting the possible death of Kratos, it leaves us all with many questions of what the future holds. Now, with that summary somewhat out the way, let's actually talk about Loki from Norse mythology. Now, just to be clear, I will be talking about his more commonly known Icelandic depiction, as there are multiple different iterations of the character that have come out since his creation. Now, Loki derives from the realm of Jotunheim, the world of the giants, and is a child of Laufey and Throbati. Due to sharing blood with the All-Father Odin, the young Jotnar would be taken in by the Aesir, and from this point onwards, he would be raised as one of their own. But Loki, unlike the rest of his family, was a conniving and sinister jester, plotting behind the backs of everyone and causing chaos and destruction wherever the opportunity may present itself. Whilst in many stories, Loki is depicted as a cowering opportunist, the taste he had for chaos would only be fueled by the knowledge of his bloodline's long-lasting feud with the Aesir, and this only made that tipping point to villainy that much easier. Behind the backs of the Aesir, he would scheme with the giantess Angrboda and sire 3 children with her. 3 children that would bring on the end of Asgard. Fenris, the bane of Odin, Jormungandr, the world serpent, and Hel, the goddess of death. As this went underway, the cogs of the apocalypse began to turn, and Loki would finally set this in gear with the death of one of Odin's children, Balder. During a feast, another child of Odin, Halder, would be presented a bow and arrow. Of course, this was all in fun and jest, as the blind god looked to hit his target, but it was the voice of Loki that would be the one to guide his arrow. A mistletoe arrow, one of the only things in all of the 9 realms that would be able to kill Balder. So, during the feast, the serpentine Loki would guide the hand of the Odinson and have him kill his own brother. So, Ragnarok would now truly begin, as Fimbulwinter started. And really, it's here where Loki's true nature would finally surface, showing his disdain towards the gods by berating them for their single-minded oafish nature and desire to be loved by mortals. Now, whilst these words cut very deep into the gods, it would not go unpunished. The Jotun would be tortured by being strapped to a table and have poison seep into his eyes. This would go on for many days and many nights, leading up to the events of Ragnarok, where eventually the Trickster is able to break free from his shackles and join his family during the siege of Asgard. During this fight, he would clash with the likes of the guardian Heimdall and eventually take his life. But he in turn was not so lucky during this battle, as he had sustained injuries that would shortly take his own life. So, from what you can obviously tell, Atreus is a drastically different version of Loki from Norse mythology. The trickster god always knew of his destiny, and has always retained that malicious nature. He has always been a cunning and spiteful snake. In fact, there's actually many depictions of Loki as the devil. It probably explains why, in his dress attire, he most commonly has 2 horns. Now, as pointed out, Atreus is significantly different. And honestly, it's very hard to compare these 2 characters to each other, as fundamentally, they are just so different. The foundation of Atreus' character is nothing like his Nordic counterpart. But that's not to say he's all innocent, as we did see Atreus spill the blood of Modi. But why was this the case? And why didn't Atreus remember it? Well, I don't believe this was done maliciously. At least, not from the perspective of Atreus. The young man's sudden change of character only really comes to the surface during the raid of Tyr's vault. After claiming the Black Rune, its engravings is embedded deep into Atreus' being, and I believe that this is what alters the shy and passive boy into a bold and egotistical god, giving in to the very thing Kratos had feared. Whilst we know very, very little about the properties of the rune, as it's so ancient and it's one of the many secrets of Tyr, I believe the Black Rune serves as a somewhat physical imprint and catalyst that enables someone's divinity to rise to the surface. It unravels their true nature, much like the rune itself. It's why when Kratos holds it, the rune doesn't affect him. Atreus, on the other hand, feels its full effects, embracing the darker side of his godhood, and tossing aside the moral complexity of his human counterpart. We must also take into mind how godhood now kind of works in the series. Whilst not every god is born evil, the foundation of their family and heritage seems to be a significant factor as to what shapes a divine being into a god. In many ways, it could be seen as an opportunity to live up to their mantle as gods and earn a title next to their name. And I believe that is what we see here with Atreus, the physical manifestation of his dark counterpart. Even if it was very brief, I believe this is a side to the character that somewhat resides beneath the surface. Every dark thought and feeling that Atreus has ever felt comes to the surface once he embraces the darker side of his heritage, and it shows echoes and mirrors of that vengeful anger that Kratos was infamous for. But with this having passed, do I think we could see such a thing again? Well, honestly, I think yes. It's going to be hard to rule out when we will see Atreus fully embrace the Loki persona, but after the events of the first game, and the genocide of his people, and how Atreus is willingly accepting the idea of becoming a warrior, I think we are going to see quite a shift in character for Atreus. But I think something like this is a fundamentally important aspect about Atreus as a character, because we gotta keep in mind, Atreus, he's young, he's still growing, and he's still making mistakes to learn from. I think this is an important aspect of his character, as he has to fight with the conflict of who he has to be versus who he wants to be. And I believe Kratos is the great middle ground that can help accompany Atreus on this journey. Remember, These two games are really centered around Atreus' story. Kratos may be the main character for us, but for Atreus, he is the centerpiece of the Nordic games, and I couldn't think of a better character to really accompany him when it comes to learning about that repressed anger and animalistic rage. I think Ragnarok paves way a very interesting direction for this character, as really, I don't know what to expect from him going forth. Will Kratos be able to keep him in line and in check? Your guess is as good as mine. But for now, this has been it for this video. I hope you enjoyed this one and learnt more by doing so. I find it really fun being able to take these characters from established mythologies and kind of understand how exactly have they been reinvented for this universe. It makes for a fun video, and I mean, hey, if you guys enjoy this and want to see me do this with more characters, please do let me know down in the comments below, as I do find this stuff very interesting. Plus, it gives me an idea of what you would like to see. But for now, this has been it for me. So as always everyone, stay strong, stay well, and keep on fighting, as Ragnarok comes for us all. Take care everyone,